Hat, check. Sunglasses, check. Notes, check. Pepsi, check. Sources, check. Thick skin, check. Oh, and one more thing. 10,000 subscribers, check. Let's go! Welcome back to Gold and Blue Dude, everybody. If you're a college football fan, a rabid, die-hard college football fan, this is the channel for you. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. We do college football videos every single day. There is no off-season here at Gold and Blue Dude. Talked about Florida State and Miami possibly going to either the SEC or the Big Ten together. And of course, we all know that doesn't happen unless those grant of rights get figured out. Or maybe possibly one of them going to the Big Ten and one of them going to the SEC. And what would be the best fit for them? Well, today we're going to talk about Oregon. And yes, the Big Ten again. Because yesterday, Brett McMurphy sent this tweet out. It says, Oregon initiated preliminary discussions in Chicago with the Big Ten to determine if the Ducks are compatible in Big Ten. Source told at Action Network HQ. Now listen to this. Outgoing Oregon President Michael Skill, AD Rob Mullins, and Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren not involved in any discussions in Chicago, another source said. So some type of representatives from Oregon are going to Chicago to talk to the Big Ten to see if they're compatible with the Big Ten. But the commissioner's not involved, the Oregon president's not involved, the Oregon athletic director is not involved. Who went? Who went to Chicago to talk to the Big Ten? I want to know. Ever since UCLA and USC announced they were going to the Big Ten, the Pac-12, they've been sweating. They don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to exist? How many more teams are going to jump? And Oregon has been at the top. Now, we also heard that the Big 12 was interested in Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, but nothing has happened yet. My personal opinion, I do think eventually that at least two of those teams will end up in the Big 12. And the Pac-12 will have to backfill out of the Mountain West. I think the Pac-12 continues to exist, but it's going to resemble more of a Group of 5 conference rather than a Power 5 conference. That's just my opinion. We'll see what happens. So I got to asking myself, how compatible is Oregon with the Big Ten? So I looked up a lot of numbers. First up, fan base size. Oregon actually has a really big fan base. The biggest in the Pac-12. Here are the Pac-12 fan base size rankings. Number 12 was Oregon State with 790,000. Number 11, Washington State with 850,000. Number 10, Stanford with 890,000. Number 9, Colorado with 950,000. Number 8, Arizona with 1.04 million. Number 7, Utah with 1.09 million. Number 6, Cal, 1.14 million. Number 5, Arizona State, 1.45 million. Number 4, UCLA with 2.35 million. Number 3, Washington with 2.46 million. Number 2, USC 4.46 million. And number 1, Oregon with 5.54 million. In fact, Oregon cracks the top 15 as far as largest fan bases in the nation. I'm using DucksWire as a source for the Pac-12 rankings, and I'm using Tony Altimore as a source for the national rankings. So Oregon does have a big fan base. What about their attendance? How does their attendance do? Well, their attendance not as high, and the biggest problem with Oregon is their stadium size. Despite having the biggest fan base size in the Pac-12, they have one of the more smaller stadiums. This was the attendance rankings over a 5-year span done in 2020. Number 12 was Washington State, averaging 30,339. Stadium holds 32,952. Number 11, Oregon State, averaging 35,217. Stadium holds 43,363. Number 10 was Stanford, averaging 43,263. Stadium holds 50,424. Number 9 was Cal, averaging 43,457. Stadium holds 63,000. That is a big gap. Number 8 was Arizona, averaging 45,456. Stadium size 57,400. That's a pretty decent gap as well. Number 7, Colorado, averaging 45,687. Stadium holds 50,183. Number 6, Utah, averaging 46,349. Stadium holds 51,444. Top 5. Number 5, Arizona State, averaging 49,901. Stadium holds 53,599. Number 4, this is where Oregon was, averaging 55,509, but the stadium holds 54,000. So you actually averaged above your stadium capacity. Shouldn't that tell you something? You have the biggest fan base in the Pac-12, a top 15 fan base in the nation when it comes to fan base size. You're averaging above your capacity. It's time to expand your stadium, Oregon. Number 3 was UCLA, averaging 57,074. Stadium holds 90,880. That's almost half. That's not good, UCLA. Number 2 was USC, averaging 66,261. Stadium holds 77,500. And number 1 was Washington, averaging 66,527 with a stadium capacity of 70,083. I think Oregon could surpass UCLA for sure, and probably USC and Washington average attendance if they had a stadium that was big enough. That doesn't make any sense, Oregon. Why do you have a stadium that only holds 54,000? That makes no sense. Even our stadium, West Virginia Stadium, holds more. It holds 60,000. And we have like the 34th largest fan base in the nation. Expand Autzen Stadium. The problem with Pac-12 right now is the deficit for the Pac-12 is growing. And one of the biggest problems that created that was the stupid decision in 2020 to wait so late to start playing football. That hurt the Pac-12 tremendously. They were already in a deficit, but that ballooned the deficit by a significant margin. Finally, the last category, revenue versus expenses. Oregon was actually number 2 whenever it comes to revenue. Washington was number 1. Revenue was $133.8 million. Expenses $131.3 million. Oregon, their revenue was $127.5 million, but expenses were $129 million. So they were actually operating in the red. Now, the good thing for the Pac-12 is they have so much money whenever it comes to endowment and academic support that they can use money out of that to make up for the football expenses or athletic expenses overall. So it would greatly help Oregon to move to the Big Ten to help with those expenses. Now, I do think the expenses would go up because of traveling, but the revenue would go through the roof. So I think Oregon would be operating in the black as far as an athletic budget in the Big Ten. So to me, honestly, I think Oregon is a no-brainer after looking at all this. I would still have Washington at number 1. I know they don't have the biggest fan base, but they do make the most money, and their fan base is more regional, so they have a huge alumni base. When you look at Oregon, they're more of a national brand because of Nike. Nike has made Oregon into a national brand, so they have more fans across the entire nation. But with Washington, you have a massive TV market, the city of Seattle, and they have a top 25 fan base whenever it comes to size. So Washington is still my number 1 team out of the Pac-12 into the Big Ten, but Oregon is now my solid number 2. And it looks like they're trying to lean on the Big Ten to try to let them in. I don't know what the Big Ten's plans are, but if they intend on expanding further, I think Oregon has to be on the list. We already know that UCLA and USC are headed to the Big Ten. 2 teams that need to make a statement in 2022 and catch the Big Ten's eyeballs as far as being accepted into the Big Ten are Oregon and Washington. So here's a look at their college football schedule for 2022. Here is my official prediction for Oregon and Washington. First, we'll start with Oregon. Preseason ranked number 11. A lot of changes going on in Oregon. They lost their head coach. I think Dan Lanning is going to instill much more toughness into Oregon. I think they got a little too cute, a little too fancy under Mario Cristobal. But it is going to be a transition year. Here's how I see it panning out. First game, number 3, Georgia in Atlanta. Ask Clemson. It is not good to play Georgia in the first game. I think that's a loss. But it could be closer than people realize. Remember, Oregon did go into the horseshoe and beat Ohio State last year, but it's not going to happen this year. That's a loss. Next game, FCS Eastern Washington, easy win. Next game, number 25, BYU. I have this as a 50-50 loss. I think BYU is going to be pretty good again. BYU isn't scared of going on the road and beating Pac-12 teams. Just look at last year. Next game, on the road to Washington State. I also have this as a 50-50 loss. I think Washington State is better than people realize, and it is a road game. Next game is Stanford. I have this as a 50-50 win. Stanford can be tricky, but I think Oregon is the better team, and it's at home. Next game at Arizona. That's a win. Next game, UCLA at home. This is a 50-50 game because I think UCLA is going to be a good team, but I have Oregon winning this game. Next game at Cal, also a 50-50 win. Could be a trap game, though, because it is on the road, and it's coming off a big win over UCLA, and you have another road game following this. But I still have it as a win. Next game at Colorado, that's a win. Then you have Washington at home. I think this is a 50-50 win. This is going to be a big game for multiple reasons this year. Number 1, conference expansion. Number 2, this is a great rivalry. Number 3, possibly trying to get into the Pac-12 championship game. Remember, divisions are gone. Top 2 teams get in. I have Oregon win this 50-50 football game. After that, number 7, Utah. It is at home, but I think Utah is the better team. I have this as a 50-50 loss for Oregon. And finally, the rivalry game at Oregon State. I also have this as a 50-50 loss. I think Oregon State is actually going to be better than what they were last year, and it's on the road, so I have this as a loss. This will be a down year for Oregon. I have them going 7-5, but remember, this is a big transition year for Oregon, so don't be mad at me, Oregon Duck fans. I think you'll be back. You'll have some great teams in the future, and hopefully you'll be playing in the Big Ten. Next up, Washington. How do I see Washington finishing in 2022? Here's their football schedule. First, they get Kent State. That's a win. Then FCS Portland State. That's a win. Then number 15, Michigan State. Michigan State had a terrible defense last year. I think once again they will have a terrible defense. They lost their running back, Kenneth Walker. That's going to play a major factor in this game. Washington's defense is going to be legit, and they have Michael Penix Jr. for quarterback, the transfer from Indiana. As long as he don't get injured, Washington is going to upset number 15, Michigan State. Although when the game actually rolls around, Washington might actually be the favorite. I have Washington winning this close game. After that, Stanford at home. Stanford will be tricky, but it's a home game, so this is a win. Then on the road to a difficult UCLA, I have this as a 50-50 loss for Washington. On the road to Arizona State, Arizona State's going to take a significant step back this year. That's a win. In Arizona, that's an easy win. In the game at Cal, don't sleep on Cal. This is a potential trap game, but I have this as a 50-50 win for Washington. Then you get Oregon State at home. If this were on the road, I'd probably have Washington losing this, but it's at home, so I have Washington winning this. Next is number 11, Oregon. Of course, you already know I have this as a 50-50 loss, but I think it's a good game. Then you get Colorado at home. I think that's a win. Then on the road to Washington State for the rivalry game, the Apple Cup, I think this is a 50-50 loss for Washington. Washington State is going to be a solid bowl team. This is a rivalry game. It's on the road. Sorry, Washington fans. I have you losing this game. So I have Washington finishing 9-3. So going by this year, I think Washington will make a better impression on the Big Ten, but I don't think they really go on schedule and wins and losses. I mean, they took UCLA and USC. Come on. This comes down to dollars. So to me, Washington and Oregon is a no-brainer for the Big Ten. If the Big Ten expands and they can't get Notre Dame, it would greatly surprise me if they didn't take Oregon and Washington at some point. We'll see what happens. Y'all let me know in the comments section, how do you feel about Oregon putting the pressure on the Big Ten as far as membership? Do you think it works out for them? And do you agree with my season predictions for both Oregon and Washington? That's all I got for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.